Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today as I adjust my microphone live on the air. This is the weekly, or a couple of times weekly, live stream where we talk about careers, job search, resumes, interviews, networking, all that kind of stuff, discovering jobs, and everything that goes along with it, and with a twist, because we're not talking about the theory about how it should go. We're going to be talking about how it actually does go. And the title of this episode is Rejection Hurts. You are not alone. So if you are applying for a ton of jobs right now and you're not getting very far and you're getting a lot of rejection, this is where we can talk about it, what to do about it, and not just the sort of psychological side of things, which is important. Mental health is very important, but also what can you do in terms of practical terms to make it so that you are not rejected going forward? That's the ultimate goal. So that's what we're here to talk about today. I see there are 12 people here. Thank you for joining me today. You guys are awesome. You're also engaged in some self-improvement, which should, you keep doing that and you're going to be crushing it pretty damn soon. Public service announcement, special thanks to my YouTube channel members and my Patreons and my super thanks donors and to my participants. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. And if you are seeing my beautiful face right now and my amazing hair, you should see a chat box somewhere nearby. Get in the chat. If you are a subscriber to my channel, get in the chat and you should be able to ask me questions, tell me what you're dealing with, tell me what you're going through, tell me what you're wondering about, all that kind of stuff, and I will do my best to help you out. That is the whole point of these things. That's why I do these. So yeah, and to kind of keep the finger on the pulse of what's going on with a lot of job seekers. So yes, we're here to talk about that stuff. I see Mr. Morinson is here, says, morning. Top of the morning to you, Mr. Morinson. Says, appreciate your vids about the job. Thank you. You're absolutely welcome. It's great to see people that are watching them. That's the hope of anyone who makes videos, that people are actually watching them and actually find them somewhat useful, hopefully. So, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, once I've covered on my channel pretty much every job interview question, what you should say as an answer to every job interview question, where do you go from there? I talk about the job search process. I talk about alternatives to job search, because there's kind of two tiers with this stuff. There's the sort of lower level tier where people are applying for jobs, usually online. And then there's a sort of second tier where people are getting jobs through other means, usually through networking of some kind. And there's basic ways to get jobs through networking, and then there's sort of higher level ways to get jobs through networking. So wherever you are, if you're applying to posted jobs and you're dealing with recruiters, that's one whole world there. Or if you're doing the networking thing and you're sort of finding other ways in, which is incidentally how the majority of people actually get hired, is some form of networking. Whether that's it's all good. There's multiple ways to do this. There's many different ways of getting a job. So if you are rejected, if you are not getting anywhere in your job search, just be aware of that. There are many different methods of getting a job other than simply sending your job application to a recruiter and going through their standard official process. The problem is there's a lot of recruiters out there, and some of them are really good. They're talking about like how to get past a recruiter, essentially, how to give the recruiter what they're looking for and go get in the door that way. There are many other ways where sometimes you're playing along with that process and sometimes you're really not. You're going around it. Hiring managers just want good people, and they really don't care how you come to their attention and how you show off how awesome you are, as long as you do. And there's many ways of doing that. So there you go. Get in the chat. Let me know what's up with you if you are having a rough time in your job search campaign these days, if that's kind of the deal, or you just want to talk about something else to do with job search, careers, that kind of thing. It's all good. I don't have an agenda of what to talk about. I don't have a plan of a big long monologue. I'm just going off your questions and comments. So keep them coming in. I see there are 17 people here. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I originally, when I first started live streaming, I think I sort of I turned on that little thing where you can have anyone make a comment. And unfortunately, I was getting a bunch of spam and a bunch of sort of hostile kind of things going on from people that weren't really interested in kind of what this was all about. So I had to dial that back, and I've got it so that in order to leave a comment, you have to be a subscriber to my channel for at least a week. I think that's how it works. So if you are a subscriber to my channel for at least a week, you can get in the chat, leave me a comment. Yeah, there are many different parts. Let's just talk about job rejection. First of all, it comes with the territory. I don't care who you are. I don't care how brilliant you are or how in demand you are going to experience rejection, and a lot of it. And that's just the name of the game. And knowing that doesn't necessarily mean that it feels okay, because it doesn't. We can't just turn our feelings off, as much as we'd like to sometimes. If you know that something doesn't matter, it still hurts anyway. And it still gets at you. That's just the name of the game. I know I'm in a total minority here, but that's why I actually would prefer, and I have done this in the past, where when you apply to some place, I actually don't care about receiving, a letter back that says conclusively yes or no. If it's a no, I don't want to hear about it. I just assume everything is a no until I get a yes from somewhere. You know what I mean? This game is not about following up. Following up is kind of, I don't want to say a waste of time, but it's bad in terms of productivity, because it doesn't open up any new job opportunities just following up on the existing ones. And it also can have a psychological toll. If you're always following up and the answer is always no, that doesn't really do you much good on an emotional level. So for that reason, personally, I know I'm in a tiny minority here, but I actually would prefer not to get a hard no. I don't need those kind of emails coming in constantly. I remember when I was doing this years ago, I did not like that. It felt bad every single time. I know people like to know with some finality, did I get it or not? I understand that. That was just my personal opinion. But constantly hearing no from everybody, that takes its toll, And the thing is, the name of the game here is also trying to keep your spirits up to a degree, because it takes effort to apply for jobs and to do all the activities that you might want to do in a job search campaign, like networking and things. It takes mental energy, and if you're depressed, if you're down in the dumps, it takes away from your ability to do that. Sometimes if you're really in a bad place, it just sort of acts like a paralyzer, and you just can't do any of the work that you need to do because you're just sort of paralyzed. Very unfortunate. So that's why we got to take care of ourselves through this process. The other thing about rejection is that it's largely an illusion. When we get rejected, we always read into it that person thinks that we're no good. We've been weighed, measured, and found wanting, and we're no good. And that's not necessarily what's going on. In fact, most of the time, that's not what's going on at all. The most common reason you get rejection is because of statistical probability. If there's one job and 200 candidates, 199 of those are going to go home with a no, right? And that includes people that are certainly qualified to do the job, and they have a lot of things going for them. The fact is, there's usually more than one of those, and so it's almost like flipping a coin to decide between them. Mr. Morinson says, what do you mind about people with professional qualifications of complicated areas like architecture or anything like that, but it's foreign people and now they're in the US? How should they apply for a job? I don't know, because I'm not in the US, so I wouldn't know that. Listen, in my experience with foreign nationals that are sort of in a host country that are applying for a job, all I can say is just do as good of a job as you can. And the only real barrier that I was aware of, the only major barrier was the language barrier. Now, there are other barriers. One of them is in terms of qualifications. If you have qualifications from your home country, and they may not be recognized in your host country, right? That could be a sticking point, right? I'm not sure how you handle that. I suspect what people may do, and I mean, I don't know. So you would be better off talking to an expert that deals with immigration and work visas and all that kind of stuff. But I suspect that what would be convenient would be on your resume, if you have a qualification, educational qualification from your home country, to put the equivalent, say this is equivalent to this, and then that way people know what they're dealing with, right? Now, what I've had to deal with in a past life was, I worked for a company. We were, hiring, employees, and some of them would be they would be immigrants from a different country. And I had to create a sort of qualifications registry where, you find out what people have, like what qualifications they have, and then you try and make sense of it, try and understand what it is, what's it the equivalent to, how well it's regarded, this kind of thing. A lot of times those may not be recognized in the host country. So, you still need to understand what this employee of yours has, so I've had to do that. It's quite challenging, actually, because someone might have a qualification from a university halfway around the world. It's in a different language you don't understand. Okay, roughly you might be able to determine this is equivalent to this type of qualification in the host country, but you have no idea if it's a well-regarded equivalent or it's a poorly regarded equivalent, this kind of stuff. You have to do quite a bit of research, to determine that stuff. So it's not always easy to do. So as much of that stuff that you can do that work ahead of time to make it easy on presumably a recruiter or hiring manager and say, this is the equivalent of this, and stuff that's verifiable, right? I think they would appreciate that. That makes their job easier. So that's all I can really say it's based on my experiences with that stuff. But I'm not in the US, so I can't answer questions about, what would you do if you're in the US? I don't know, because I'm not in the US. So hopefully that makes sense. Guru Prasad says, Bill, in my case, why do my custom cover letter emails get ignored by industry leaders? Okay. Who are industry leaders? Over 10,000 plus targeted cold emails sent to industry leaders and 100 emails a day sent since one. Well, I can't say precisely because I don't know what you're doing and I don't know who you're sending it to, but that's not a method I would recommend. Just sending out mass emails to industry leaders, whoever they may be, is not really the way to do it. First of all, email is the poorest method for reaching out to somebody because it is so easy to ignore. Now, I don't know, do you ever get spam emails? Like, have you ever gotten spam emails yourself? That's how your emails are probably being regarded, okay? Now, the other thing is that the less personal they are, the more likely they're going to be ignored, right? For a start, they're unsolicited. The person doesn't know you, okay? So the other thing is that if you start talking in a very formal way and a very grandiose way, it's even less relatable, right? So I imagine, I don't know what you're doing, but if that's what you're doing, then all of that is going to contribute to most people just ignoring it, treating it like spam. Okay? Now, if you're sending out, like if you sent out 10,000 plus emails, I'm willing to bet they're all based on a template, and they probably read like they're based on a template. So all of that contributes to people not wanting to respond to them. It takes work to respond to emails. It's not easy to do. You don't do it for like optional stuff. And email is already like, there's already so much spam sent over email to begin with that it makes it even harder to succeed doing that. It is like technically networking, but it's really not the right approach in my opinion, okay? You would need like a specific reason to send a message to someone, okay? Like, for example, they work at this company, and the reason why you're sending it to them is because they are in this position at this company, and that company, there's a reason for you targeting that. Maybe it's located in your hometown. Maybe it's, you know of the company, you know that they're known for this. They treat their workers really well, or they're leaders in, pushing this industry forward, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a reason why. If you're just like peppering everyone with like spam email, and I don't mean spam in a derogatory way, but that's how it's going to be perceived, right? You know what I mean? So that's probably why the reason why you might not be getting anywhere might be something to do with all those principles there. Mr. Morinson says, got it, tackle the language barrier. Thanks. Yes, that's the biggest barrier. Now listen, how can I put this obliquely? Okay. I've worked with many foreign workers, before, and some of them have been absolutely fantastic, okay? And some of them have been spectacularly terrible. And the one kind of thing that sort of correlates to me personally, based on my experiences, are the language barrier. Some people who can speak the language of the host country very fluently with a minimal accent, that makes them, it's very easy to communicate with that person. The other thing that there may be is cultural differences in terms of verbal interaction. For example, I've been in a situation years ago, like I encountered this many times, where if I was a supervisor, and this was like in the context of like tradespeople, I was a supervisor and I had like a gang of tradespeople that I was supervising, and that might have included a couple of new workers who were foreign, and they had a language barrier. But more than that, they had sort of a cultural thing. And one of the things that I encountered was, if you explain a task or you say something to one of the workers, and then you say, do you understand? And they would say, yes, like that kind of thing. And like, okay, fair enough. I learned that in a lot of cases, sometimes the answer really was no, they didn't understand, but they would say yes, they understood, because they believed that it was rude to say no. Like if I then needed to repeat myself or to explain further to them, that was regarded as impolite or something. So they would say they understood my instructions when they didn't, and then that would lead to all kinds of problems. For example, they would go away and they would ask their fellow workers what I had said to them or something like that, and they'd get their information secondhand, and that led to some problems. So, I learned that, like, okay, when I'm dealing with that particular employee, I would have to not just say, do you understand? I would say, okay, now repeat back to me what you have to do, right? And I'd make them explain exactly what my instructions were back to me so that I could verify that they actually indeed did understand them. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about language barrier. It's not simply the comprehension of the language or the ability to speak it or write it fluently. It's also like being able to communicate in the way that that's the standard way of communicating in that organization, in that work environment. Learn that, so that when people need to deal with you in a workplace type situation, as far as they're concerned, it's easy. There aren't really any differences or problems in terms of the communication. The communication just works really smoothly. So that might be a combination of becoming very fluent at the language. It might be also include like really trying to minimize any accent when you speak it. And it might also include learning sort of cultural differences in how you communicate or how you behave in terms of etiquette or protocol when people are communicating. So if you work on all that stuff, if you try and like really get that so that it's like they're dealing with any other worker, and the fact that you're, an immigrant or something, like, really doesn't enter into it, that's perfect. That really levels the playing field. Okay. Mr. Morrison says, you have a great pronunciation. Some I misrepresent you to American. Well, I'm Canadian. Canadians sound a bit like Americans, and I don't know. Some people where I live have a stronger Canadian accent. They say a boot and, all these kind of things. How's it going, eh? They say all these kind of Canadianisms. I think that people from the United States, the vast majority of them have an accent. There's a few people that don't have an accent to me. And those are the people in like the North, like the Yankee, kind of like Yankee Doodle Dandy. They kind of like, I don't know if you're from Connecticut or Vermont or something. To me, they don't sound like they have an accent, but almost everyone else does, including people in the Midwest. To me, they sound like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. No offense to anybody who's in the American Midwest. It's fine. Just don't go to Glasgow in Scotland. That's the only accent I've really ever had problems understanding. Go to Scotland, like in Europe, in Scotland, and go to the city of Glasgow. And it's like people are speaking double Dutch. I couldn't understand what the hell they were saying to me. Other than that, it's all good. Guru Prasad says, yes, Bill, they are custom tailored. I'm into talent acquisition, quite targeted. I know my target company. Listen, look, it's very hard for me to say what the problem is when I've never seen an email of yours. I don't know who you've sent it to. I don't know what you've said in it. I don't know the circumstances under which you've sent them. It's very hard for me to say exactly what the problem is. But there's a few things there that I would not recommend people to do. That just personally, okay? What I would recommend to do is if you are in an industry where it's very, very specialized. I don't know if you are or not. Like, and by that I mean, chances are you have to relocate to be employed, right? You have to go halfway around the world to be employed because, like you're like a university professor or you're an airline pilot or something that, it's not like just everywhere, right? That might be one thing, in which case you would definitely want to custom tailor it. If it's something that's more ubiquitous, like if you're an accountant, every single company on the planet pretty much could use an accountant. So you can apply for like thousands of jobs wherever you are as an accountant, that kind of thing, or a laborer or something like that. Then you don't need to tailor it quite as much, right? But you see, the thing is, the reason why networking has power, okay, is because you're elevating yourself above the crowd, okay? You're not going in with all the cattle. That's the big difference between applying for a job and trying to get into a company versus networking. You're not doing a standard thing that everybody else is doing, right? So, if you're sending out a message and you want to deliver a custom message, right? I don't know. I just wouldn't use email. Email is just not the vehicle for that because it's something that is so easy to ignore, right? Even on something like LinkedIn, and I've talked about LinkedIn a lot, doing networking over LinkedIn, like not to HR people. I'm talking about to actual people, like managers and decision makers that have the power to hire you. I wouldn't send in-mails on LinkedIn for the same reason. because most people on the other end are not going to be interested. It's just going to be a waste of your time and effort. What I would do is I would send out connection requests with a proper little note on it, and then only the people that respond to a connection request, to show that A, they're actually attentive to their LinkedIn account, and B, they're amenable to conversing with you. I would only send a tailored message to those people. Like, you've kind of vetted them, you've filtered them a little bit. You know what I mean? That's just personally what I would do. I've heard a lot of people recommend like mass email campaigns, and also before that, it used to be mass snail mail campaigns, where you would send 2,000 physical letters to industry leaders. The other reason is that lists of industry leaders, that's something I looked into like decades ago, and when I did, those databases or those lists were like woefully inaccurate. I don't know if that's changed. I think there's a lot of people just selling like lists and lists of target emails, and I think that either it's bogus or a lot of them are just not very accurate. They're not really going to people that actually would be able to help you for the thing you're looking for. You know what I mean? So, there's a whole bunch of principles. Like, for example, you would have to go to people at the top, not at the middle, not at the bottom, right? People at the bottom can't help you. The people in the middle are too busy to help you. You would have to go to people at the top. And usually, a lot of emails are not really the way that people reach out these days to those people, for this reason, because like there's so much spam email flying around. Executives get like over 100 emails a day, so it's hard to elevate yourself above that. If you're just sending out another email, you would usually reach out with a phone call or some other message. Shab says, if I have less experience than others applying for a job, a good idea to tell the interview have less experience than others but have... Sorry, you lost me. Once you start writing sentences that are a paragraph long, it's hard to parse. Let's try this one more time. If I have less experience than others applying a job, good idea to tell the interview have less experience than others but have all these other transferable skills and other experiences. Sorry, Shab, can't understand what you're saying. If you want to try and break that up into smaller sentences so I can actually understand what you're saying, then I'll be happy to respond. Guru Prasad says, I'm 11 plus years expert talent acquisition lead. I avoid... What's TA? Talent acquisition, TA manager, but target TA heads of department since they are the natural decision makers. Talent acquisition heads of department. I even know what that is. Are you trying to say hiring manager? Is that what you're referring to? Okay, talent acquisition to me means HR, right? So if you are a recruiter, you are a talent acquisition associate or something like that. Now I'm trying to figure out what talent acquisition manager would be. Would that be a head of an HR department? Like the head of recruitment and selection or something like that? Like equivalent to a director of HR, something like that? I wouldn't send it to those people because I think it's a waste of time. I would send it to hiring managers. Hiring managers are the people that can actually hire you, not the HR department. The HR department, they simply when it comes to recruitment and selection, they follow orders from hiring managers. Hiring managers say, I need a new employee for my department or whatever, and then they elicit the services of a recruiter, either internally or externally, to assist with that process. Usually to post the job, to create the job posting, and then to post it, and then to do the initial filter of candidates, and then to make recommendations as to some of the candidates after the initial sort of filter, right? So, I mean, listen, some people recommend that you contact recruiters on LinkedIn and through other means. Great, you could try that and find if it works. Personally, I don't recommend that. I think it's a waste of time. Now, if you've done that and it hasn't really gotten you anywhere, then maybe try a different approach. Now, you've said that you're like a talent acquisition lead. So let me ask you something. When you get emails from people, do you then put them in the running? Like do you end up hiring those people? I don't know. If you do, then, I don't know what the problem might be. But if you don't, that's probably an obvious answer right there. Alex COD says, in Sweden, the finance jobs are getting like 100 applications. How can I stand out with my application when getting the standard way with a CV and a cover letter? Thanks for all the tips your videos give. Okay, so if you choose to go that method, like you're going to sort of play their game, okay? Here's how you stand out. Now, stand out does not mean do something unique or memorable, okay? Because it's easy to do something unique and memorable. Write your resume in crayon and mail it to them and soak it in beer and put it in an envelope and send it to them. That'll be memorable. That'll make you stand out. But of course, obviously that won't get you hired. The way to get hired is to fit the job requirements more than any other candidate, right? It's not about what you can bring to the role. It's about what they happen to be looking for and how well you can speak to those things, okay? There are some other kind of things in there, like showing a lot of enthusiasm. That's always a big one. They're looking for candidates that are genuinely enthusiastic to be in that role, like in this actual job. They want to be there specifically, right? For a very valid, demonstrable reason, right? It's like a stepping stone to something, or something about that particular organization that you really, really like, or some specific reason, right? So that's how you win at that game, is you play by the rules, and then it doesn't matter what you think you have, it matters what they happen to be looking for. How well do you fit with those, okay? So you tailor your resume to that end, you speak to exactly what they said they were looking for, and then same with the interviews, where you go to the interviews, you really focus on what they said they're looking for. It's not about what you think you can bring and trying to convince them that you've got this unique thing that you can bring. It's about the stuff they've already thought of, that they have in their head. They're looking to see if you have it. Do you have that or not? That's what you speak to. Sue Hale says, when the employer asks the exact salary figure, how to answer this question? Oh, well, listen, I've got a video with like millions and millions of views on it that tells you exactly how to do that. It's probably better than me taking about 10 minutes to sort of walk you through that. Bottom line, don't give a number. Use every trick in the bag to get out of talking about a number until they get to the point where they make you an offer. That's the only time they actually want to talk about salary seriously. If they bring it up at any point beyond them giving you a job offer, before giving you a job offer, it's simply a question used to eliminate you, right? So whatever you say in terms of a number, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Whatever number you give, either it's too high, which is bad, or it's too low, which is also bad for you. So you have to avoid saying it. So check out my video on that. Just do a very quick search. Okay. I have a playlist called Get Hired, and there's a link to it in the description box of this live stream. Go there and watch those, including that answer to that video. And that's how you answer it. Deanna says, what advice do you have for older candidates to make their resume stand out positively? It doesn't matter how old you are, just make sure that you speak to the requirements. What I was saying like a moment ago of how to stand out, that's what you have to do. The other thing is that, unfortunately, the way recruiters and stuff think is that nobody really cares what you've done earlier than 10 years ago. Okay, so, that's incredibly infuriating, but it's true. You might have accomplished all kinds of things and you have a whole wealth of experience under your belt. And that's awesome. You and I both know that that kicks ass and that makes you very useful indeed. However, the way these clowns think is that if it's earlier than 10 years ago, don't even put it on your resume. If it's earlier than 5 years ago, just give like the bottom line, like just describe it very briefly. Okay. If you're playing this game with HR, you're playing their game. Those are their rules, right? So it's incredibly retarded and infuriating, but that's how they think. So that's how you cater to it. Now, what I would recommend, okay, is hopefully you know that there's more than one way to get a job. There's many other alternatives than simply responding to job postings with an application, right? You can go the networking route. You can do direct outreach where you reach out to the organization and you don't talk to the HR people. You talk to the hiring managers, like the managers of different departments, the people that would actually need someone like you to work for them. That's who you reach out to. Or people higher than that at the executive level, okay? Now you contact those people and you say, here I am, I'm awesome, I can do this, I'm great at this. If ever you're looking for someone to do that for you, please let me know because I would love to work for you guys. Thanks and have a great day. Most people are not looking right now, but the ones who are, who haven't posted the job, which is the majority of employers that have jobs, and you send that message right now and it lands right in their lap, they'll put you right at the top of the list. They'll talk to you first before they post the job. That's how that works. So learn about that. That's the way to really get in. And the bonus is if you're talking to a hiring manager who's older, who's an older lady or gentleman, they won't be biased against older people, okay? Because they're older themselves. They see the benefit of that, okay? So if that's a concern, that's one way around it. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Amazed is back. Amazed says, a great interview and communication Bill often stresses here is simple. Write and speak clearly with necessary punctuation and avoid abbreviations and acronyms. We could all use these vital tips. Yeah, like not to appear like a finicky old miser or anything, but yeah, the more clear you can communicate, the better. Because I get people writing stuff that just, I don't understand what you're saying. And I'd like to respond, but it's hard when I can't parse what you're asking. So yeah, it's just good. I mean, I have a course right there that talks all about that, right? The other thing is that you come across much more professional and capable in the way you write, right? So if you write and it's hard to understand, people can develop a negative impression of you. They assume you're stupid. They assume you're incapable. They assume you're not, you can't do very much. Whereas if you communicate really clearly, really professionally, people don't know you, but they'll get a very, very positive impression of you. They'll say like, wow, this person, is really professional and really clear. And I like that. I like them. It's enjoyable to communicate with them. I don't have to put a lot of energy into it, and we're making each other understood. Mr. Morinson says, Suhail, he has a great video about it. Okay. Yeah, check out that video. Bubbles. There's a name. Right on. Bubbles says, in my experience when I was younger at an interview, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Now in my 50s, I'm like practically nonchalant. Tell them my age, experience is what they need. I've always been offered the job. Well, great. You keep doing that. Make sure you don't show any politeness, and apparently that's a secret. No, I'm just joking. But whatever you're doing works for you. Shab says, sorry about that. If I have less experience than other candidates, should I acknowledge that to the interviewer and stress that I have other great transferable skills? Absolutely not. Or not mention it at all. Don't mention it at all. Never say anything negative in a job interview, especially about yourself. So don't go in there and go, well, I know that I don't have as much experience as some other people, but I'm still good. don't say stuff like that, even if it's true. Because there's their reason to eliminate you right off the bat. You handed it to them on a plate, right? When they talk about you after the job interview's over, they say, what did you think of that candidate there? And one turns to another and they say, I don't know, they were not bad, but it seems like they really didn't have as much experience as other people. And then the first person says, oh yeah, you're right. Okay, well, we'll give them a miss. Right? You see, the recruiter and the hiring manager, but mainly the recruiter, their job is to eliminate people, right? You start with hundreds of candidates that apply for a job, typically these days, and you've got to whittle that number down to one person that you hire, right? If it's like a single position. So, in the beginning, you're looking for almost like any reason to eliminate somebody. So that's why when you go online and you go to, say you're applying on a website, and they ask you those questions, those like questions you have to answer like a yes or no, right? Do you have 5 years experience in this? Yes or no. Now, you know why they ask those, right? Because if you say no, they've eliminated you. Like, even if you then submit your application, if you didn't answer favorably to all of those questions, that pretty much is an automatic elimination, right? That's why they're asking that to you. It's to filter you out. So you start with this number, and then it's like, these are the people that apply. Then these are the people that, it goes through. These are the people that they give like a callback and an initial phone screening. These are the people they bring in for an interview. Maybe there's 6 of them. These are the people that make it to the second round of interviews. There's like a final 3, right? And then one person they offer the job to. So it's like it's an elimination thing. Now, they're looking for reasons to eliminate people at each step, right? So if you offer them a reason, you say, well, I know that some people might be friendlier than me, or they might be, they might have more experience in this job than me. Right? I'm not the most experienced person ever, right? It's like there's their reason to eliminate you, right? They know that of the X many people that they're considering this round, they have to eliminate 80% of them. You're going to be one of the 80, right? One of the 80%. So that's why you don't give negative things about you. If you're in an interview, when they ask you all those ambush type questions, like what's your greatest weakness, right? What would your enemies say about you? Like all this stuff. What did you hate most about your last boss? Right? They're all designed to eliminate you. You say, well, my enemies, they all consider me a jerk because they know that, I really don't like people that can't communicate properly. I mean, God help you if you don't use punctuation in a message that you send to me. Not only do I fly off the handle, but I absolutely refuse to deal with you ever again. They know this. And so that's what they'd probably say about me. And then the recruiter says, well, thank you very much for being so forthcoming in your answer there. And they've just eliminated you because of that answer you gave. Here's what's wrong with you. And your competitor, another candidate, when they were asked that question, what would your enemies say about you? They said something along the lines of, well, first of all, I don't really have that many enemies that I can really, that leap to mind when you say this. And I imagine, though, if I did, they wouldn't really have much to say about me because I'm always friendly and I always try my best to do good work and I try to get along with everybody. So, I really don't see what they would say about me that was negative. Something like that. And they go, oh, okay. You haven't given them anything that they can use to eliminate you, right? They're going to try and bait you with all these questions. They're going to try and entrap you and get you to hang yourself. They're going to give you the rope and they are asking you to hang yourself. You have to not play into that. And the candidates that don't fall for that crap are usually the ones that they pick. And then the recruiters pat themselves on the shoulder thinking we're so good at unearthing and revealing who these people really are, you know? That's this silly game that they're playing. Where did I leave off here? So hopefully that makes sense, Chab. I don't mean to come down on you, but I'm just saying that's what's going on. Guru Prasad says, Bill, can the lowest current what is a CTC? Be a rejection factor during preliminary screening rounds, especially with the front. Like, you have to define CTC for me to proceed with that. Don't use acronyms. I mean, I'm talking to people all over the world in every industry. Don't use an acronym. You might think that that acronym is universal. It isn't, okay? It might be universal in your industry, but it's not across the board, I can tell you that. Bubbles says, I didn't mean to insinuate I was not polite anymore. What I meant was that it went from I need you to you need me. Love your content. Thanks, Bubbles. I'm just yanking your chain. That's all I'm doing. I know you didn't mean that. But I guess that I've heard that so many times. You see, this is what's maddening about this world is that everything works some of the time, right? So whatever someone like me advises people to do, I might say something like, when you go to a job interview, you want to be very polite or something. And then there's always someone that says, well, I told the recruiter to F off and I got the job, So it's like, there's always someone that says that, right? So it's like, yeah, okay, great. That works for you. But, as a general rule, don't tell the recruiter to F off. That's probably not going to work. You know what I'm saying? So that's all. It was just formatted in that format. So that struck a chord with me. But it's all good, Bubbles. You're awesome. Don't worry about a thing. I totally understand what you're saying. Leah says, I'm just now joining in, but I need advice because Monday I have a panel interview. Never done a 5-person interview before. Okay, Leah, don't worry about it. It's exactly the same as a one-on-one interview. The only difference is that the same questions are going to be asked, but they're coming from different people each time, right? That's the only difference. Now, the only complication is that, with 5 people, it's going to be hard for some of us, certainly me, to remember 5 names and then to remember who they are, right? So what I recommend, I don't know if you have a business card. If you had a business card, it would be perfect. You go down there, when you go into the room and you meet these people, you shake hands, you do whatever, and then you give them your business card. And that's the cue for them to give you their business card. And if you've got 5 business cards for the 5 people, you can put those down on the table in front of you, like in order of the person. So that person over here, their business card is right here. That person, their business card is right in front of me here. And then this person over here, their business card is right there. So if I need to know who that person is, I can look down. I'm like, oh, that's John, or oh, that's Betsy, right? And this is Murgatroyd, right? And that's Augustus Belvedere, right? The CEO. So you've got their names in front of you, so you can use their first names to refer to them. It's like, well, Mr. Belvedere, that's an incredibly awesome question. Thank you for the question. This is what I have to say. And it says who they are. That's the important part, because if you're talking to a recruiter, or you're talking to a CEO, or you're talking to a hiring manager, you're going to probably want to tailor your answer a little bit, right? You can't really talk shop with a recruiter, and you can't really talk niggling little job details with the CEO. And talking about broad strokes about company culture with the recruiter probably won't get you too far. So, you know what I mean? Like it helps if you know who the people are. Beyond that, the panel interview is exactly the same as a regular interview. Don't stress out about it. If you can remember people's names, if you can't do that, just write it on if you got a piece of paper on the table in front of you, just write it on the piece of paper. John, was it Augustus Belvedere, right? That just rolls off the tongue. And Betsy, everybody's favorite friendly recruiter. Okay, so that's the only thing that you have to concern yourself with that might be any different than just a standard interview. This jumped on me again. Where did we leave off? But that was Leah. So hopefully that makes sense. Shab says, makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Well, that's great, Shab. I'm glad you feel that way. Bubbles says, for sure. Ha ha ha. Thanks for your content. You know how texting works. Yes. Unfortunately, I do. I wish I didn't, but I do. That's the deal. Yeah, get in the chat. We got 39 people here on a Friday. Hopefully you're having a good Friday. TGIF. It's not Friday the 13th. It's Friday the 28th. So that would make anyone happy. Yeah, it's always a challenge, this stuff, you know. And the most likely reason people are rejected for jobs is simply statistical probability. It's not because you were no good. It's just because, you know, you were qualified. Several other people were qualified. They only could pick one. You know, it really came down to figuratively a roll of the dice. And this time, you weren't picked. Next time, you'll be picked. But this time, you weren't, right? It's purely a matter of chance. So keep that in mind when you get rejections. Like, I know you can't change how you feel. It's always discouraging getting a rejection, but just with your brain as opposed to your feelings, at least know that it's not any kind of statement of your worth or your capabilities. You know, it's just, usually it just is pure chance. Guru Prasad says, Bill, can my lowest current salary could be a rejection factor during preliminary screening rounds? Especially, absolutely. Yeah, that's the only reason they ask you that. Especially with those frontline screening recruiters when they try to gather preliminary data. Absolutely. That's the reason why they're gathering that. It's to filter you, right? Think of what you do when you go to the store, okay? You go to the store to buy groceries, to buy food, right? And there's usually an aisle, and it's got all kinds of food on it. Like, let's say, I've talked about cans of baked beans. I've talked about loaves of bread. What other food stuff would there be on there? Cola, right? Like maybe you buy like the 2-liter, Coca-Cola, Pepsi Cola, Canada Dry, right? You know, all that kind of thing. Now, what's the first thing you do? Like, let's say you don't recognize any of the brands. Okay, you've never heard of Coca-Cola before. You never heard of Pepsi Cola. What's the first thing you look for? They're all drinks. They're all the same size. What do you then do? You look at the price, right? When deciding, like, I need to get some canned drinks. What should I get? I got to pick one of all these, right? And they're all different colors, and you know they're all different flavors, whatever. I've never had them before, so I don't know. So I first look at, you know, what the selection is, then I look at the price. Now, is getting the cheapest one always the best thing to do? No, it isn't. Sometimes it is, but often it isn't. It depends what we're talking about, right? If it's something where you really care about, you know, I don't want to get something crappy, I want to get something good, would you always go with the cheapest possible option? Maybe not, right? But in the absence of any other criterion, you know, to compare these by, you look at like their name and then you look at their price, right? That's what everyone does. You do that. That's what employers do when they look at different candidates. They don't know who these candidates are yet. They seem to be somewhat qualified. We'll hopefully look at that a bit deeper later on. But, you know, this one wants $40,000 a year. This one wants $200,000 a year. What would you do? Well, if you've got like a ton of candidates, you'd probably start by like eliminating the more expensive ones right off the bat, just because they were expensive. I've got all these choices. I don't need to spend $200,000 on a candidate. Not when there's like, when you can get one for $40,000, right? Right? That's normal behavior when you do this stuff. So that's exactly what they're doing with you. right? They're eliminating you before they even really take a good look at you. Like you could do that with cars, you know, you could get some cheap piece of crap, secondhand, third-hand, used car that costs you like $5,000, or a car at an auction. I used to sell cars from my company when we were, you know, we'd lease cars and we'd have them and then we'd buy them. And then after, several years, we would just give them to the auction place that would auction them off. And you could get like a car for like an astronomically low amount of money, you know. But you could also pay $500,000 for a car, like if you got a Lamborghini or something, right? Or a Rolls Royce. So it's kind of dumb sometimes eliminating the highest, more expensive options. But when you have an overabundance of choice, you start by eliminating people based on price, right? So that's why they're asking you the compensation question in the very beginning. They say, what are your salary expectations? Or they say, what's your current salary, right? Because they want to say that that's how much you're worth. It might not be what you're worth, but that's why they ask that question. And you've got to try and resist giving them numbers, right? Because either they weed you out because you asked for too much, or you ask for a really low number and they're going to pin you to that. They're going to say, well, you're only worth this low number. And either way you fail, right? Okay, the answer in a nutshell is to give them some kind of range where you say like, look, I can't tell you. It's too early to say, but all I could really say at this point is, I don't know, somewhere between here and here, somewhere in there, I'm sure we'll be fine, right? You give them a range, really low to really high. Both numbers are doable, but just reasonable. And then that way they can't eliminate you because you asked for too much, because you said somewhere in here. You didn't actually commit to a high number. But it leaves you open later on to ask for more money in the offer stage. And they say, hey, I never said a low number. I said somewhere in here. And that range goes all the way up here. So I'm going to ask for the upper limit, or somewhere towards the top. You want to keep them guessing about that stuff. What you want is you want them to fall in love with you. What you want is you want to go to the grocery store and you want someone to give you a free sample of, say, the Coca-Cola or whatever, drink. And you drink it for the first time and you go, oh, that's awesome. I want this. And now you're prepared to pay a little more for it because you see the value in it, right? If you find out later the Coca-Cola costs, even though there's some drinks you could have got for $2, this one costs $6, you're still going to pay the $6 because it's like, I fell in love with the Coca-Cola. I want that. That's really good. Right? So you want them to look at you long enough to fall in love with you and see your value. That's the job interview process if you play this game. Right? Make it to the final round. Have them look deeply at you and see how awesome you truly are, what you can bring to the role and what they're getting, how enthusiastic you are, how easy you are to deal with, and all the assurances that, you're going to work out in this job. And then when their heart is set on you, you're the Coca-Cola, that's when they make you an offer and you can turn around and say, well, I'm going to need this. And then it might actually carry some weight. It's not always possible to negotiate salary, but if it is, that's how you do it. So that's how that works, generally speaking, Guru Prasad. Hopefully that helps. Leah says, okay, good to know. Luckily, I already work within the company, so I'm able to look up who these people are. Haha. Okay, this was, the panel interview. Yes. The more prepared you are. I got a job like about 100 years ago where I went in for the job interview, and I can't remember anymore if it was one or it was several interviews, but it's like, I knew it was a panel interview. They told me there's going to be this person, this person, this person. And like, I think what had happened is that they said, okay, we'd like you to come in for an interview. And then they gave me some like document that said like, 2 pages on like, this is the company, this is the profit sharing program, and these are the heads of department or the heads of the divisions or whatever. And then you're going to be coming in and meeting with us. So I remember like I memorized that document. I remember the names of the people and what they did. So I walked in there and I knew that, okay, your name is John or whatever. So you're the head of this division, and your name is Frank and you're the head of this division, and you're the owner of the whole thing, or like whatever. I remember like boning up on that like a lot before the interview. And I remember it paid off. It felt like it paid off because it kind of showed that I was serious. I had taken the trouble to memorize who did what and who they were at the interview. I didn't have to have the business cards on the desk or anything like that because I had done my preparation. I mean, in that situation, it helped me. I don't know if that's necessarily required, but that anything you can show where you care or you're enthusiastic, where they pick up on it, that will work in your favor. Yeah, so look them up. If they've got LinkedIn profiles, definitely look them up. Figure out what their history is. Like if this person is an accountant and they've come up through this industry, and this other person is a salesperson and they've come up through this type of activity, like that's important to know. You'll know what they could maybe relate to and what they can't from your experience. So if you are asked behavioral interview questions to tell a story about something, you know who might relate to that, Guru Prasad says, can we fake the numbers initially? What happens when you spend a long stint with the same company as against job hopping with significant... You shouldn't have to fake anything. Listen, all you have to do is go in there and know what your position is. Like, what amount of money does it make sense to take the job for? You need to know that. If it doesn't make sense to take the job, if it pays less than a certain amount, you need to come in there with that, right? And, I hate like talking about market price because market price is so deceptive and it's so flimsy too. It really doesn't apply to a lot of people. A lot of companies don't pay market price. They intentionally pay above it or below it. And the other thing is that market price in theory would only apply to you if you are an average employee. Some people are not average. You're above average, you're below average. You know what I mean? So like, and then if that isn't enough, it's also very hard to get accurate market price information on a lot of different jobs. That might work for like jobs where they employ thousands of people all in that one same job, like customer service rep. You know what I mean? But something a little more sophisticated, like supervisor of, sewerage systems mechanical repair gang. What's the market price for that? There's not enough people in that job for you to say what the average is, and you probably can't get any data on how much they're paid at all. So good luck finding that. You know what I mean? So I hate talking about market price because market price that's what everybody talks about for some reason. It's like they just make 1,000 assumptions and then say, go ahead and do this. And it's like, no. There's too many assumptions there, and they're all very flimsy, and they're all a big deal. So just figure out for you what makes sense for you to take the job for. And then if they try and haggle you down to something near that, you just say, no, sorry. Doesn't make sense. If you're absolutely desperate for a job, it's either this or unemployment, and you can't be unemployed any longer, then you really don't have any bargaining power. You have to take it for whatever they will pay, The problem is that they will not want to haggle you down too much because they know that someone with your qualifications could probably get a better job, than what they were paying. So, if you accept it for that much, it doesn't make sense. You'll probably only be there for 6 months, if that. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't fake anything. I would just go in there and know what your position is, and then just not fall into any other traps. Don't give a number. Sorry, I can't say. But we need you to give us a number. Well, I'm sorry, I'd just be pulling a number out of the air. I can't give you a number. You know? I mean, I don't know, somewhere above minimum range, somewhere under 100 grand. Like, I don't know, somewhere in there I'm sure would be fine. But I really can't say. I mean, does this job involve shift work? Does it involve, what are the benefits like? Much vacation do you have? How many sick days do you get? You know, do I have to do overtime? Is it mandatory overtime? Do I have to work holidays? Is there remote work? What are the working conditions? You know, do I get longer lunch breaks, or do I go all the way through? Like, there's so many factors here. I can't give you a number. Sorry. You know, maybe if we get to the final stages, I might be able to talk more intelligently about it, but not at this stage. That's the best I can do right now. Could be reconciled in later stages by confessions. I don't know what you mean by confessions, but like, no, when you get to the offer stage, that's the only time you actually discuss salary. And it takes the form of saying, I need this much, right? You maybe give some concessions. You say like, well, in my last job, I got, 4 weeks vacation. Here, this job, I'm going down to 2 weeks vacation. So I'm not crazy about that. But you know what? I'll give you that. That's fine. I'll make it happen. I'll make it work because I'm really enthusiastic about working for you guys. So I'll give you that. However, I'm going to need you to scratch out this number here and write in this number. And then we got a deal. So let me know if you can do that. You know, that kind of thing. And the only way you can negotiate is if you have alternatives. So if you don't have an acceptable alternative, then you can't negotiate. You have absolutely no power whatsoever. You have no choice. You have to take what they're offering. If you have other interviews lined up, you got other job offers that are maybe rolling in, then you can afford to, play hardball a little bit with them, and push it. Because you have a fallback option, right? But if you don't have that, if you're just bluffing, you have to be prepared for your bluff to be called. Because people aren't stupid. Employers aren't stupid. Employees tend to bluff when it comes to this stuff all the time. And employers know that, like, usually it doesn't carry any weight, right? Anyway, I'm not sure if that's helpful, but that's what I have to say about that. There are 39 people. Thank you for joining me today on this beautiful Friday. About 20 years ago or something, they released a terrible song called Friday. And I've had that in my head for the last half an hour. Friday. I can't remember who did that. Some flash in the pan, some one-hit wonder. And it was like the biggest thing ever for about 2 weeks. And then you never heard of it ever again. So I'm not sure if you can find that on the deepest recesses of YouTube somewhere, but yeah. In fact, don't. You'll do yourself a favor. Anyway, let me know if you guys have any questions. I don't have anything else of my own to say. I'm just going off on responding to people's questions and comments. If we don't get any questions or comments in the next minute or so, I'll start to wind this down. In the meantime, go check out some of my courses. This course is very, very popular for job seekers, and it contains all my advice all in one place. Not just about how to apply for posted jobs, but also how to apply for hidden jobs. The jobs where you do direct outreach and stuff like that. And I show you at least 2 methods of how to do that with, templates and processes and everything all in there. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, check that out. If you're having problems in your job search, it's not going anywhere fast, you have several things at your disposal that you can do. This is one option, okay, just to sort of do a sanity check, make sure you're doing everything correctly. Alternatively, if you suspect that maybe when you go down to interviews, you're doing something that's just not working for you, it's resulting in everybody getting turned off, or it's a question of, you're applying for many jobs. You've applied for thousands and thousands of jobs, and you're not getting any interviews, and you suspect that there's something maybe about your resume or about what you're doing that doesn't seem to be working because you're never getting any bites. If that's the case, okay, something you can do if you wish is you can talk to a career coach. I am not a career coach, so I have absolutely nothing invested in this, but I'm just saying other people are. There are a lot of career coaches out there. Even just one session with a career coach, a single session, just to sort of get them to look at your resume, get them to do like a mock interview with you and give you some objective feedback, and recommendations as to maybe what to change that might yield better results. Okay. So you've got a few options, right? If you're just trying to learn how to do job interviews or how to write resumes or this kind of stuff, if you're trying to learn how to do job interviews, the method I recommend is it's like a 2-step process. Step 1, this is what you work on by yourself. You do this solo. You memorize answers to the common questions and make sure you figure out what you want to say and then memorize those answers. That's step 1. You could do that by yourself. And step 2 is you do mock interviews. So pretend job interviews. Grab a friend or family member and get them to help you. Don't just do 1 or 2 of these. Do like 3 or 4 of them a day. If there's people that you live with or, whatever, they're just around, or that can come over, get them to help you with this. They pretend to be the interviewer and they ask you questions and you answer them like you're the interviewee, which you are. And do this for like 2 or 3 weeks. As you're applying for jobs and stuff, like 2 or 3 weeks doing 3 or 4 interviews a day, you will have this stuff down. You will know it you'll know the answers backwards and forwards like a pro. So when you go to job interviews for real, you won't be nervous. You'll recognize it's all the same questions that they always ask, and you'll know exactly what to say, and you'll have the confidence because you see that they're asking you pretty much what you're expecting. And that's how you get good at interviews. It's just practice makes perfect, and some people need a little more work than others, but everybody needs practice to a certain degree. So this will help you to learn how to do interviews well. Don't make all your rookie mistakes at actual job interviews if you can help it. Make them in rehearsal, with a friend or family member. And also have fallback answers and stuff. So if they ask you a question where, you just don't have a clue what they're asking or you don't have a clue what the answer is, you have fallback answers. So whatever they ask, you know what to say. This is what I recommend. So between my course and getting a career coach, just to give you a sort of sanity check, and doing this kind of 2-step rehearsal process, you should be okay. You should be fine. There's a lot of help out there. Did I do that one? Leah Williams. Okay, good to know. Luckily, I already work with the company, so I'm able to look. Yeah, okay, so I did that. Guru Prasad says could be reconciled in later stages by confessions. Yeah, we covered those. Okay, well, I think we've reached the end of the discussion. There's no more sort of questions or comments coming in, so we're going to wind this down. I will be back on Monday. I have a couple of live streams on Monday. I'm going to be premiering a new live stream probably next week. I'm sure nobody here will really care too much because it's going to be called Private Equity Rundown. We're going to talk about private equity. So that's like the buying and selling of companies and stuff. So if you're a financial type person, you might find that interesting. I'm passionate about that stuff. So I just wanted to do something with it. So we'll take the first steps into that world next week. Probably nobody will be in attendance, but I'm going to do it anyway. And we'll see how it goes. Other than that, I will be back with my regular stuff on Monday. So if you have questions you need answers to for job search or resumes or interviews, I'll be back on Monday. You can ask me some stuff. I'm doing the collaboration. Again, I do a collaboration every 2 weeks with another YouTuber called Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. She is a former recruiter, and she does do career coaching, if anybody's interested in that. But we're going to be answering job interview questions and things like this, how to get hired in 2025, where we're both giving our sort of perspective on it. So you can ask questions there. So join us for that on Monday. Thank you to we got a whole bunch of activity here just for a moment. Thank you to everybody who participated. Leah and Guru Prasad, Bubbles, Shab, Amazed, Alex, everybody who participated in this. And Leo sent a super chat. Leo says, second interview soon. HR told that they will ask questions on something I have less experience in, taking a course right on it. Okay. How should I approach it? They're going to ask you questions on something you have less experience in. I don't understand what that means. Like, did they say what they're going to ask you a question on? Listen, this is where you would have fallback answers, presumably, right? Now, fallback answers are usually going to be geared around the requirements for the job, okay? So if you look at the job posting and it says, we're looking for someone with this education, this experience, these skills, right? And they start asking you questions that you don't really know how to answer, a good thing is usually to fall back on talking about the requirements. So they ask you something and you don't really know what the answer is, but they say, okay, well, in this context, if this came up, how would you handle it? And you've never dealt with that before, so you don't know what's involved. But you know that they're looking for somebody with 10 years experience in customer service, right? So you could say something along the lines of, well, you know, the way I would frame it is my approach would be framed within the context of how you handle a typical customer service request. And because I have 10 years experience in customer service, I know that you kind of do this first, then you move on to that, then you move on to that. So that would be probably the general approach I would use for this. Something like that. You're speaking to the requirements as an answer to the question. You know that they want someone who knows about customer service experience. So you're driving it home how you know that and how you meet that, right? So that generally will give them an answer that they can at least use, even if it's not the exact answer they were looking for. Hopefully that makes sense, Leo. That's kind of a general approach. Yes, Rebecca Black. That was it. Jeff L. says Rebecca Black. Worst song ever. Well, it's catchy. It's catchy. I mean, it sucks, but it's catchy. So, you know, it depends what your goals are. If your goal was to make the catchiest thing ever, like a mind virus, congratulations, you know, you succeeded. The problem is people are wanting to get it out of their head. That's the problem. Does your MBA course teach me to speak like you? Are you serious? Answered, thanks. Wish I learned this earlier. Really appreciate you. Well, thank you, Amanda Joy. No, the MBA course doesn't teach you to speak like me. This course here is probably more if you're wanting to learn how to communicate. That's kind of what that course is about. Now, don't hold me up as any kind of good speaker, because I'm not. I've just been, I'm a technical introvert, and we are not good speakers. I'm hesitant, and I'm monotonous, and I have lots of spaces, and I have a lot of ums and ahs and crutch words. That's really not a gold standard to hold up. But in terms of communication, like what ideas to say, that's the course that talks all about that. So I don't know if you're serious, but if you were, that's the thing to check out. Link in the description. Galvalan says, if rejection was made due to failing their standards on their tests or assessments, does it reflect badly if I try again or I bypass the recruiters? By try again, meaning reapplying to the same role. Okay. Generally speaking, the general rule is that once people have rejected you once, they probably will do so again. Okay? That's the general rule. Does it always happen like that? No. But usually it does. okay, they obviously what you have doesn't really resonate with them. They don't recognize it as something amazing, right? So applying again, maybe for a different position, you'll probably get the same result, okay? Now, that sounds very negative. The good news is that there's lots of fish in the sea. There's lots of jobs out there. Most of them are not posted. Go after those. There's substantially light competition for most hidden jobs. They only have 2 or 3 candidates competing for them. If you throw your hat in the ring, that's like 3 or 4, you know? So you got like a 25% chance. You know what I mean? So, you know, learn about that stuff. That's much more promising than doing this kind of activity, okay? Now, the first part of your question, if the rejection is because you failed their test or assessment, you know, maybe their tests or assessments are out to lunch. It wouldn't be the first time. You know, this is the thing. Like, every single employer has their own way of assessing candidates, right? There is no one way of assessing somebody's values or someone's value, right? And I know this. I mean, I've spent my life with this. I've hired people and I've taught this courses on this in university. There's many different methods of, like, you know, how you would look at candidates and how you would, you know, assess someone's value, right? There is no one standard. And some of these methods wildly contradict each other, you know? So their tests and assessments could be totally ridiculous, retarded. They're testing you on silly things. They're making stupid assumptions that, oh, if you don't know this, then you have no value. It's like, you know, I think we all have seen that before, right? Okay? But maybe you're younger and you haven't really had a lot of experience with this. You'll see a pattern with this. And they're going to reject a lot of great people. And it's funny when you look at the people that they do hire, and then you see how well those people work out, you know, and then they all leave 6 months later, you know. It's like, yeah, you know, it's because their way of appraising their candidates is ridiculous, right? So don't worry about it too much, okay? If these are their little stupid rules, you know, and you want to get hired through their official method, so you play by their rules, but whoops, you didn't make the cut, that doesn't mean anything, you know? I've heard so much BS. People talking about, like, you know, all these, like, ways of, you know, assessing people, and it's like they always make it out to be this, like, surefire thing. It never is. It's usually crap, you know. And you can always go around this stupidity and go straight to the hiring managers through methods I've mentioned earlier in this live stream, by direct outreach, and just get hired without doing any of this crap in the company that does this. You know, if the boss had a personal recommendation from their subordinate, the subordinate's friend wanted to get hired there, do you think the boss is going to make them sit through these, like, assessments and, oh no, I'm sorry, you got this question wrong, therefore no dice? You really think that happens? That doesn't happen like that, the vast majority of situations. So don't worry about it. There's many different ways to get a job. You don't have to necessarily submit to this kind of crap if it's not working for you. Learn about all the different methods, okay? I got a course. I got lots of videos. There's a lot of other people out there talking about this. Do your own research. Learn about the alternatives to doing this, because it gets to a point where it becomes, like, self-defeating. It doesn't justify the amount of hoops you got to jump through, you know, to pursue some of these. And, you know, a lot of people rightly feel that going head-to-head with 700 other candidates to get one job is just not a game worth playing. That's where we're at. Thank you to Guru Prasad. I'm game for Monday. Thank you from India. Yeah, thank you. Amanda Joy, I'll be there. Sounds interesting. Thanks for the stream, Galvalan. Thank you, the Galvalan and Amanda Joy. And Eargasmater, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I apologize. Yes. Okay, thanks everyone. You guys are awesome. Have yourselves a great weekend. Try to do something fun. Try and think of something other than this crap, if you possibly can. And come back on Monday. Come back to this game on Monday and start again, okay? And if you need any help, I'm on live streams. Take care. I'll see you soon.